Wayne and Ben Franklin Tech Ventures for having us here this evening. Without me blathering on any longer, we have Jeff Cohen come up. He's the CEO of MindMe, which is an innovative, groundbreaking, game-changing marketing app. And he told me I could not possibly hype it too much.
That's right.
So I'm going to give it a
great job.
How about a round of applause? I mean, yeah.
Thank you, sir. That was going to bring you around to every time I present something. It's perfect. All right. Okay. So my name is Jeff Cohen. I am the CEO of MindMe. We are a Ben Franklin portfolio company here. If any of you guys are interested or have a concept or an idea or a company you've started, highly encourage you to talk to Wayne. They're great people up here. They take great care of you and really help facilitate a new business and the success. Both in investment as well as bringing additional investors too. So we've actually done 2 rounds with Ben Franklin. Our first platform that we created was a web-based text messaging platform. My last company I worked was the founder of and built out for over about 13 years. We were a billing and software company for membership businesses. And over that time we collected a little over $500 million in payments. So that was kind of my core skill set at the time. And I always did sales and marketing and loved technology. And so when I sold that a few years ago, I said, well, what do I want to do? And in the space, there were a lot of marketing tools, mostly around email systems, and not at the time so much around mobile and text. Obviously, some of that's changed in recent years. And we're evolving to meet those needs. So we'll give you a little tour today of our new mobile apps that we've just started to launch in a private beta. And I'll give you an example where a site you can go onto to actually download that and be a beta user if you want to. If you have a small business, you're an entrepreneur, you're a company, and you need some marketing help, that would be great. So our first platform is called MindMeMobile.com. It's a web-based text messaging and mobile landing page solution that is in revenue and growing. And along the way, we said, well, this is great for businesses, but what about for solo entrepreneurs? We do have solo entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs use our system today. But we said, well, what if someone wanted to have an app? When you're a solo entrepreneur, maybe you have 50 or 100 customers, contacts, you're a personal trainer maybe, out there an insurance agent, whatever it might be. What tools do you have at your disposal to market, communicate, organize yourself? And so what we created is this platform. It's currently a separate product, and we're in the middle of kind of merging it into our core platform. And this is called MindMe Solo. It's in the App Store and Android Store currently. You need a code to kind of download it or at least to create an account, which will get you if you want. But basically, this tool is a full CRM. So if I go in here and I click the little head at the bottom left, in the main toolbar there, what this system does is it allows you to, it's a full contact manager that you can use. So I'm going to click on here, and it's got full organizational capabilities, so I can come in and I can actually add people or subtract people to a list if I want to. I can add people's interests and subtract those, so you can keep track of people's interests. If you're a trainer, I just use that as an example. If you're a personal trainer, you might have people interested in flexibility or strength training or whatever it might be, losing weight. And so you can track all this, and then you can communicate based off this. Or I can even tag people if I want to. Once I have these contacts, and I can go in and edit this guy if I want to and update everything here. But once I have this, then how do I communicate? Well, you see there's a little, I don't know what my pointer with at the moment, but there's a little airplane in the middle. If you click that, you can actually select the types of contacts you want. Now, most systems like Constant Contact or MailChimp, email platforms, typically email only, are very list-based, right? They don't really let you granularly target the types of contacts you might want to target. So in this case, I might say, well, I want all my leads, and I want everyone who's interested in hockey, right? Now that happens to be someone who's not a particular lead. They're probably a customer. So I will choose something else. Let's say golf, right? Choose a bunch of these guys. Let's see. Okay, there we go. Got some people. So we've got a couple contacts. I'm going to pull them off just for the moment, just to get a bigger population set. So we have 27 contacts at the moment. I can actually also choose on here birthdays if I want. Let me set everyone who's next month is their birthday. If I want to, or when the contract was created, the last 30 days, whatever it might be, I can apply that filter. I can come in next, and this is what's really nice and pretty unique, I think, compared to other tools that are out there. You can actually, with this system, send an email, a text, or a voice broadcast to folks. So every single paid solo account, the app will actually get a phone number too, a local number. And not only can you communicate, but you're going to be able to also do private chat communication too, through something we'll call conversations, which we're about to roll out shortly. It's already built. But anyway, I can choose email. I'm going to click email on here, and let's say I want to send a text message too. Well, you may not have a text opt-in for everyone. You may not have an email an email address for everyone. Let's say you met people here and you got some emails, some cell phone numbers. So I can actually flip these around and I can prioritize. I might want to send a text first, and everyone else that I don't have a cell phone for, send an email to, or vice versa. So you can flip these around, do this anytime you want. I'm going to just choose an email. When I come in here, you have a bunch of elements that are already in the system. I can delete them, I can copy them, I can come in here and put a title, say tech meetup. Let's choose that. Let me add, I hit the little plus, let me add an image to the bottom of this guy. And take a nice little picture of our little group. All right, so that's in here. And then let's say I want to edit this if I want to. So I can come in here, I can hit this, I can edit it. And if I want to, we can do all kinds of things. So we use technology, we use, well, it used to be Aviary, now it's Creative Cloud, Adobe's product that we connect to. So we can do whatever we want. So if I want to blur out some people, or let's say I want to do a vignette, I can apply that, right? Let's crop it a little bit. Okay, so there I go. And the other piece of this, which most people don't have, I'm going to delete this so I can add it again, is I can actually add a call to action. Now, what would be a call to action? Well, in most platforms, who do you guys use, like a constant contact, MailChimp, something like that? Okay. So when you use that tool, right, it's impossible to get any type of response. I mean, you can see who opens an email, right? You can see how many clicks you might have, but you can't see how many people say I'm interested in sausage versus pepperoni when Wade's ordering, the next time he's ordering his pizza, right? So with something like this, he could use this tool, send out, I could do a yes, no, maybe to see who's coming to an event. I could come in here and I could actually do a poll if I want to, right? Or get feedback from tonight's event, whatever it is. And once I send this out, I'm just going to go through, so just keep that in mind, what I just told you. So I'm going to come in here, we're just going to put a little subject. Okay, and then we also have something innovative that we created called a text reminder, soon to be called a smart reminder in our new platform when this rolls out. And what I can do is, if you have a call to action, kind of where you're looking for a user response, or audio or video that you're playing that you want to watch, or someone wants to listen to, or even just the open, it depends, an email can have any or all of those things. Then we'll look at that and we'll automatically send a text reminder if someone hasn't responded, play the audio, video, or open the email. So this is great. So now, email's only read a quarter of the time, right? Literally 25% of the time or less people open an email. It's not very effective, but it's less expensive than text. So here, someone could send an email to 1,000 people and only send a text out to 500 of the people that did not open the email. It's a really effective way. I mean, you're marketing, you're communicating, you want to make sure that gets read and noticed. So I can come in here and I can literally say, 1 day later, it's going to check that and send it out. I can schedule this guy if I want to, what have you. And then, probably the most interesting part of this is once I send my campaign out, okay, now I can go to my last campaigns and I can actually see the campaigns that were pulled. So I can come in here as it loads and I'm going to actually pull up all my campaigns, and this is my last campaign, and here's an example where media was played. This just went to one person, but I could also come on here and I can view all my previous campaigns as well, right? And once I pull that information, I can actually see who responded, who did a poll response, who did a yes, no, maybe, whatever it might be, right? So as you do this, the advantage of this system is you actually have an engagement. It's an engaging type of communication. Here's all my previous campaigns that I send, and if I wanted to do a test email, I don't know if this has any campaigns on there, but I can go on and actually see the responses as part of the platform. So we're in the middle of launching a we have a mindmemobile.com. If any of you guys have businesses and you want to get a free trial and play with it, that's our text platform. And I'll give you some credits and you can use it for your businesses if you want to. If you want to sign up for the demo of this, when this becomes fully available, this is mindmesolo.com. If you want to do that. MindMe Solo, that's the app.
Mind me what?
Solo, S-O, like for sole professional.
Okay,
Solo.
solo, okay.
Solo, you got it. MindMe Solo.
S-O-L-O, okay.
Correct. And then MindMe Mobile, if you want to actually get a demo or a free trial of our current platform, if you want to play with that. In the next 3 to 4 months, our plan is to integrate all of this into one platform, and our web platform will be email, text, voice, advanced email integration to platforms that we have, mobile web pages, landing pages, all kinds of great stuff. So really a really robust marketing communication platform that we're looking to do. We're always looking for more users and more people that give us feedback. So thank you for allowing us to come here today and give you a little demo of what we're up to. mindmemobile.com is our website. Love for you guys to check it out.
Any questions?
Jeff, is any of my email in your 4,300 email inbox?
Probably.
Well, doesn't that serve the point, right? Right. I have no unread text messages and 4,300 unread emails, and I'm sure at least 10 from Wayne. No question about it. Awesome. Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Oh, yeah, sure. Please.
Yeah, I just had a question regarding the marketing and pricing of the product and
Sure.
what your plans are for that.
That's great. So our current product starts at $29 a month, and it goes up from there depending on usage. That's 500 text messages. Most people are at $49 a month, and that's 1,000 messages in and out. And it also is used for lead capture too. I didn't really demo that, but people can text what's called a keyword. So I might do, tech, for example, text that to our short-coded number, and then the leads come in that way, right? So you can use it for lead capture too, with mobile pages. Most people do that because the 49 includes mobile web also. And then when we roll out our new platform, that'll include email, it'll include voice broadcast, it'll include some other technology too. That'll be just built right into it.
Thanks.
Sure. And we will have a totally free version of this also. When the app is connected on our new platform, it'll literally be email only, limited, but it'll be free.
One more question, I think.
Yeah, sure, please.
You mentioned, I think like Adobe for the editing software for the photos.
Yeah.
How does that work with like licensing them out?
It's free actually. They give it away for free. So you can literally get a few lines of code, you plug it in. It takes a little more work than that, right? I'm technical, but not our main coder, right? So that's easy, just pop it in. But you actually have to put it in, and it actually is free. It's a free plugin that they give you, which is nice. And there's a desktop version or a mobile version. So if you're designing apps, you can get the app version, or you can get a free API, key for the web desktop version too.
Can you alter it in any way, or is it?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think you may be able to choose what options, you saw there were different filters that we have on there. You may be able to choose that. I honestly don't know the answer. We're using their base.
Yeah, you can choose that, and they'll charge you if you use it, like, let's say that photo doesn't end up on your infrastructure, that you use Creative Cloud to serve it to your users, so like that, they'll charge you for that.
Any questions?
All righty, thank you.
All right, great.
I did get a chance to see the full product that they have coming, and I've used a lot of those kind of products, so I do urge you to check it out once they have something going, because it's a great price point for what they're offering. Okay, well, I am Colin. It's kind of nice to be in this building, so thanks to Ben Franklin for putting such a lovely place up, and for Tim for inviting me. But I think I'm a pinch hitter here. I think you swapped me out with something, like I kind of filled in. So lower your expectations to the floor, because I don't have much to wow you with. However, I'm going to kind of split my talk up a little bit. First thing we're going to go through is some of the best practices for building and deploying and marketing an application, and how that kind of compares to whether you're doing a product or whatever. And then at the tail end of it, I have a personal project that I'm gonna slip in since Tim can't tell me no, since I'm standing in front of the microphone now, that I've been working on myself. I'm building my first mobile app myself that I'm coding in Swift for iOS, and I want to kind of walk you through what it's like to do that at the age of 36 and learn a completely new programming language that you've never known before that, and kind of the fun that I've been having to put that together. So, like I said, well, one thing I didn't mention is that I was on the second floor here. Well, this half of the building wasn't even here when I was in this. I helped run a company called Vidler. So if you guys are in Ben Franklin Technology Partners, then you may have heard that name before. They're down on 4th Street now, is that 4th Street?
Yeah.
And so it was really cool to be in this building. I was also in Jordan Hall, which was really cool back then. So to see this building is amazing. So if you guys are a startup in this building, whatever, man, you guys are just blessed like crazy. It's awesome. And pampered slightly, you know. I think somebody, when this was going up, I remember someone mentioning, like, if you're, you know, Rocky, that scene where he goes to Russia, like, he needs to feel the grit. So can you do a startup in a place like this? I think you can, but I think it's kind of an interesting analogy. So what am I doing right now? I'm helping to run digital at a marketing and advertising agency in Scranton. The name of it is Condren Media. So I help to run, like, social media management campaigns and advertise buying and things on social media and putting together websites and that whole thing, branding. But then one of the more interesting things that I get to do is I run a small segment of our business called Condren Partners, which is invested in a few companies and takes equity for doing services also for those companies, marketing services. So because we have a lot of experience in the company, we're able to offer advisement. So there's 5 companies that we currently have in our portfolio. One is an event organizing application. One is a fitness application. One is a fitness clothing product. One is a SaaS e-commerce product. And the last is an enterprise software development shop. So we get a pretty nice little, I personally get to advise them every single week. So I get to see all kinds of neat things. So I'm hoping that some of that stuff I can bring here to you guys, and hopefully during the Q&A session, if you have any questions for your own companies at the particular stage that you're at, feel free to fire them away. If I don't know, I'll tell you I don't know, and I would say ask Wayne. I just said today he's my business Yoda. But other than that, I'll try to answer them if I can. So something I've noticed a lot lately, though, is we get pitched a lot, obviously, and something that we've noticed with those specifically that are building applications is they do, let's see, is this my slide now? They do this. They kind of just say, like, you know, we don't need to know the normal business practices. We're just building an app. And so maybe they read TechCrunch too much or something, and they think that by building an app that they're going to have an exit of some sort that is going to make sense for them. So that's kind of where I'm here to talk about. Hopefully, if I bore you, then that means that I did my job in the sense that business at its base level of figuring out whether you should go to market or figuring out what your market segment may be or how you market your app or so on and so forth, it is not really that exciting. I mean, yeah, the headlines of earning millions of dollars or whatever is exciting, but business, you know, I don't know about you, but creating lists and going through all that stuff, it's not really, that's not the fun part, you know, but they are the necessary parts. So that's some of the things I want to cover. So the time that you see this a lot is when there's really big success. And you see a whole bunch of people come out of the woodwork and I can do that, right? You see Slack, Instagram, Flappy Bird. That's when people go, oh, well, I mean, of course I can make Flappy Bird. You know, Flappy Bird is probably 30,000 lines of code or less, something, right? Instagram came out, well, I can build a way to share a photo. And then Slack, I can build a chat app. And sure you can, you know, there's no doubt about it. But what can happen is you see a lot of, they don't ask a fundamental question, which is part of a larger go-to-market strategy. But that first question that you might want to ask yourself, if you're thinking about whether or not your app idea is, well, here's the other slide I have, is that everybody has an app idea, right? So if you're thinking, oh, I have an app idea, I have a product idea, right? You can exchange the word app for product. Is it a business? And then how do you determine that? You know, there are many apps that make a single person a decent living. There's independent developers and things, and they make fine livings. But is it a business, and could you build a company around it and have, 30, 50, 100 people, whatever? I remember, when Facebook first came onto the scene, everybody thought they could build Facebook. But now when you look back at it, you don't think that anymore, right? I don't know if any of you still use Facebook, if you want to call it that, but even just in the Facebook application itself, meaning not all the other properties that they own, they have apps. Has anybody ever used like a Facebook app? Meaning in Facebook, use an app? You may not even know that you are, but you can take some of your favorite apps and integrate them into Facebook for a variety of reasons. They have games, events that people can say they want to come to. They can pay for, pay for going to these events, like ticket sales kind of thing. They have places that you can check into. They have a marketplace. I'm probably, you probably already know this, but kind of go with me here on this. Is they have groups, and something that during my research for this particular presentation is they have recipes. I didn't even know they had like a recipe thing, but they do. Like if you go to facebook.com/recipes, they have a whole recipe thing. Each one of those is a business, right? You could just take one of them and say, check-ins is Foursquare. Foursquare does pretty good. They've raised over $100 million. So one of those things. So they're massive as far as where they are at this point. Now, and then obviously they've made a lot of acquisitions. Messenger is a huge platform, 1 billion users. WhatsApp is a huge platform, 1 billion users. Instagram, 450 million users or plus, whatever it is at this point. A huge revenue maker for them. Oculus, if you don't know what Oculus is, it's in the virtual reality space, but pretty much Facebook is starting to make much longer term bets, and they think probably your next experience with Facebook is not going to be in that little rectangle that we all carry around in our pockets, but the next thing would be like an immersive experience where, you're hanging out with your friends from China, not in a chat room, but in a room like this, but it would all be virtual. And so they bet billions on that. And so it's not just an app, right? The whole point is that it is a humongous business at this point. But what it started out as that. So is your idea have that kind of scale? And the way to get to that, the way to come to that conclusion for yourself is to ask yourself some pretty boring and key questions. One is, does the app or product serve a slice of the market that is large enough to build a business around? So we've all probably heard the term, especially in software development. If any of you guys, can you just quickly tell me who is a developer here at all, of any language whatsoever? And then what about designer of any kind? And then marketers? Salespeople, or just entrepreneur, which means you wear every hat? Okay. So the term in software development is sometimes scratch your own itch, and that may be good because you might be able to build a decent solution. Thinking of yourself as the user, go out and create something that scratches your own itch or solves a problem for you, and maybe there is X number of you out there. Right? That's kind of the whole point of that whole scenario. But are there? How many of you are there? You can think like if you were a lawyer and you said, I have an app idea for lawyers. I deal with this struggle every single day. I'm going to build an app that is for lawyers and I'm going to attack this market. Well, let's say there's 500,000 lawyers in the United States, which there's probably more, but let's say there's 500,000 lawyers in the United States. How many of them need your solution? And more importantly, how many of them can you reach? How do you reach them? Then there's personal injury lawyer, there's this kind of lawyer, that kind of lawyer. What kind of lawyer are you targeting? Now your pie gets a lot smaller. So these are things that you would ask yourself if you were selling a Tesla, right? How many people can afford a Tesla? How many people can drive? How many people live in an area that can be serviced by an electric car? So then you have all these different things, and all of a sudden, the 315 million U.S. citizens go down to whatever number. So the same thing can be true for your scratch your own itch idea. It gets small really quick is kind of the point. Is if you really go through that whole exercise, many ideas are like, well, me and my buddy Jim, we could use it, and that's it. And that could be cool for you, because it might save you 25 hours a week if you had that solution, and it might be worth building. None of what I'm saying here means that you shouldn't build the things that are in your head, but just that knowing what the expectation of it is. Certainly don't go raise money for something that's just for you and Jim. because then you're gonna get disappointed really fast. So, that's one thing. So that scratch your own itch thing is kind of tough. The next thing is, will your business that you're gonna build around this product or app idea, will it offer other services or products to that same segment that you've now identified? Like, okay, lawyers in the personal injury space, I'm gonna build this thing for them. Are you gonna be able to give them more than what that one thing is? You know, Jeff went through 1,000 features those guys have. And I saw their software, they had 1,000 features. So it doesn't just do one thing, which would be nice, but no one's gonna pay for that one thing over time. They're gonna have more integrations and so forth. So you might say to me, well, I've got this idea. It is the best cereal bowl ever. And let's take that scenario all the way out, right? If you did have the best idea for the best, I think this is a pretty sweet cereal bowl. So if you were to sell this, $5.95 or something, how many people could you possibly reach that would want it, that would need it, and then what? Right? So there's a ceiling to that as well. It's not going to break. That thing doesn't look breakable. So they got one, and that's it. That's all they need. So that you can think that far out with your thing. Before you write a line of code, if you're building an app, or before you create one clay model of your product that you're putting together, you can think these things all the way out to see, do I really have something that's sustainable, something that's, that I can bolt things onto, and so forth. There's a big difference between this that you see here and this, right? We probably don't have to say the name of this company, but they offer every size that you could need. So now, it's the exact same product, the same machinery to create it, the same materials that you need to buy and source and find and get the price down, the same kind of way of packaging it, delivering it, and so forth. So you can kind of get my point here is where, an idea for a bowl is a lot different than, and we know that this is Tupperware that they have. I mean, whatever you could possibly want, and then they branched out to all these other different things. So that's one way of looking at your idea. It's how big is it really, and try to poke it from every idea. And bring it to somebody like a Wayne or something that has seen all these kind of things and be able to really pull it apart and see, okay, this is for 500 people, which it could be great. 500 people, maybe if they pay it, $4,000 a month for it, it'd be great. But it all depends on what your idea might be. So that's just the beginning, though. The next thing to consider is your packaging and your sales of that product now. So now you've said, okay, I've got a big enough market segment. I know my idea is going to get to it. There's enough people out there. I already know how to reach them, right? There might be magazines that that these people read, or blogs, or podcasts, or conferences, or whatever your strategy is for getting in front of that particular person that you've identified now. And there's enough of them for what you want to make. Now, how do you take what you have, your cereal bowl, how do you get it to them for the right price and everything else? So this is the way you can look at it here, is the two different sides, which is your packaging and your sales, right? Your packaging involves things like, how will you sell it? An app is not as concerning. Let's say it's a mobile app, on Apple's ecosystem, it's obviously very controlled, and there's only one way to get it from you to your customer. On Android, there's a lot of different ways to get an app to a customer. If it's an app that goes on a desktop, it's a completely different thing altogether. Like, how do you get people to go to your website, find your app, and want your app? I mean, there's a lot of thinking that goes involved to get people to a particular thing, depending on what you're making. And then the other things in that are, how do you actually price it? Freemium, which would mean that you give it away for free and that there'd be an upsell of some sort. Subscription based, is it one time? Do you have like a service contract, where you say, well, we're going to give this to you for a very low rate, but that if you want to even call us on the phone, you have to pay us money or something like that. That's a service contract. Is there an enterprise version, so on and so forth? See, I'm starting to bore you, but that's kind of the point. Is that people that have app ideas don't, I can tell you that I've gone through, 10 minutes? And I've already lost almost every pitch I saw this year. They didn't even think about it yet. So it's kind of interesting that people that have an app idea think it's easier than if I'm building a cereal bowl. And it really isn't. much different. There's a few different things, but it's not much different. And it's so worth going through this. That's why a business plan competition is so awesome to go through as an entrepreneur if you have not. Because it doesn't matter if you win. What matters is now you have all this stuff that you made. You made a business plan, or you put together a prospectus, or you put together your statements, and you figured out what financials even mean to a company. Because for a lot of entrepreneurs, they didn't know before that. So if you have a chance to go through a business plan competition, just 100% do it if you haven't. If you're at that stage in your company. The other thing as far as sales is like, and I kind of touched on it with app stores or stuff, but with a cereal bowl, do I go retail, or I go online, do I put it on Kickstarter, do I try to get on Shark Tank and lose and still get some sales or whatever, like what do you do? So there's all these things to kind of think through. I want to cover here a little bit at the tail end of this before I ask you for your question specifically, but I want to go through 3 misconceptions that I've identified. Like I'm trying to think of how many companies. Like this year, I probably talked to like 11 companies, something like that. Not a lot, but nowhere near what other people talk to. But here's 3 common misconceptions that I have seen. Some have come in with like a press-based launch strategy. And what I mean by that is they think that, I'm using TechCrunch as an example, so I apologize to the editors in the room. But if I get on TechCrunch, it'll be great. If I get on Product Hunt, or if I get on Rewrite Web, or whatever, you name it, whatever your favorite thing is, then that's going to be the launch of how many customers I have. 100% not even close to. It's actually bad for you. What usually happens, and I've seen this with many different startups, is when they do get good press, and it's nice to be mentioned, it's nice to get that little accolade, it's nice to see your name in lights or something. However, your analytics go to heck for a while, because they aren't your customers, they're everybody. Unless you're selling a tech blog, and you get linked to a tech blog, then maybe. But otherwise, your analytics, you're going to see this crazy spike, so you don't know what to do with the data. You're going to see a lot of people signing up and not coming back, and it's because they're frivolous. They're the commenters on YouTube, that's what those people are. Right? They're coming to your product like, oh, it's not free, I have to use a credit card, I'm gone. It doesn't matter. They didn't even know what it was. So it will blow away your analytics. So if you cannot do it, I would actually say it might be better until you're really ready for that. Or that the numbers won't jump that much because you already are getting that kind of traffic or something. But let's say you go from, you're getting like 15 hits a day or something like that to a SaaS product, and you get, out of those 15, you get 3 to sign up, and one of them sticks for 2 months and then they leave. And you're like, pulling your hair out. And all of a sudden, one day you get 55,000 unique. And you think you're in business or something. But then you realize that 9 months from now, none of them are there. And what did you do for the last 9 months? Were you building against the customers that they're definitely going to leave? So it can really wreak havoc with your analytics. So that's one of the preconceived things. Like if you come in with your strategy being, my marketing strategy is that I have a friend that has 1 million followers on Twitter, then that's probably not going to be, it's probably not going to help you much. It might, but it may not. Number 2, how long should it take before you're going to be profitable? As with anything in life, it depends, right? However, I would say our culture has shifted way too far to the side where we think that we don't need to be profitable for years. We should be profitable. You could be profitable in the first quarter. You could definitely be profitable in the first year, especially if you grow organically rather than just taking tons of cash. So we need to shift the culture back to the old way where it was like, if you opened up a store, you better start making some money. It would be better if we all had that thinking, and yeah, we might, money is cheap sometimes. We get into a market where cash is really cheap, and you get really great terms on your cash, and yeah, you should take it when you can. Stuart Butterfield is the founder of Slack, and they took like 200 and some million when they had 150 million in cash. And one of the persons interviewing him said, like, why did you take this money? And he goes, because it was really cheap. So there is times, if you could put together a war chest that's almost $500 million, and you only gave away like 9 or 10% of your company, then I will tell you to do that all day long. But the adverse is usually true. Usually entrepreneurs give away too much of their company too fast, and they really could have just focused on being profitable, really from the day one. Like, start off with 2 people, 5 people or something, and actually earn revenue, I know Wayne's probably like, yes. Yeah, exactly. So it's like one of those things where if, it might not be that way for your company. You might say, listen, I need an 18-month runway, or I need this much runway, or whatever. That's fine. But if we shift our culture and our thinking to be, no, we need to make money as fast as possible, it will help everybody to have that mindset. The last one, I said 3. So the first one was tech-based launch strategies. No. How long to be profitable? ASAP. That should be the culture. And then, I'm not technical, I need a technical co-founder. Is there anybody here looking for a technical co-founder at this thing? Because I've gone to a lot of meetups, and that's what you'll see, like, hey, I've got an app idea, I play golf, and I really want to make a golf app. So now I need to find a programmer to build a golf app for me. That's what I hear all the time. I'm being that guy right now. But you don't need that. If you have an idea, you can build it. It doesn't matter if you don't know the programming language or even what programming is. No one is smarter than you. The geeks that are in this room that know how to program are not smarter than you. They just took more time. They didn't see the sun as much as you. They probably didn't see the eclipse yesterday. But that's the only difference. You can go to YouTube right now and type in programming language, whatever it is, spend 10 hours, and you'll get to the point where you might have an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. Like you'll be able to cobble something together to be able to see if your idea has any merit. It doesn't matter what you do. So there's not anybody in the whole world that can't program. No one. And the same thing could be true for a manufacturing process, or for working in textiles, or for working in steel, or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Anybody can learn anything. So don't punt and say, I need somebody else. A slideshow. And I want to build a company because I have a slideshow. And that's usually not going to get very far. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can squeeze in a 5 or 10 minute Q&A, and then I would like to show you something that I've been working on that I've built myself, and then you can ask me questions about that as well. Any questions about building a product, building a company?
Yeah, from a startup standpoint, I'm looking at social media. So what are the best tools? I mean, I'm looking at Facebook Boost, for example. I don't know if that's good or bad or different. I was just wondering.
Is it for one company?
Well, I'm sorry?
Is it to manage the social accounts for one company?
Yeah.
More than one, like do you have your company on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter?
We have it on all.
There's a lot of tools out there. Hootsuite is one. If anybody else has any other, they can feel free to chime in on ones that they prefer. But Sprout. So what that would allow you to do, have you ever heard of those?
No.
What that would allow you to do is if you go to Hootsuite, you connect, and then you would create a post or whatever you're going to post, and you can schedule it, you can do all kinds of, it's very robust and allows you to track the metrics from all those things in one spot as well. And so that, at the very least, will take away the, let me log into Facebook and add a post here, let me log into Twitter and add a post there. I mean, it significantly reduces your time as far as automating that. You can, if you have a blog for your company, you can say whenever a blog post goes out, it will automatically distribute all that stuff. So it's really kind of like an automator for social media. It does a lot more than what I'm saying, but that's where I would start. The other thing would be, for those same tools, again, I can't, YouTube is my, like, if he's my Yoda, then YouTube is my something else, But you can go to YouTube and learn how to use any of these platforms. You don't need to, do too much more than that and get up and running. I hope that helps a little bit. Anthony.
Your thoughts on developers working for equity? Because I know that's always something I hear. Oh, I'll find a developer and I'll offer him some equity. He'll jump right in.
So which perspective do you want me to take, the developer or the entrepreneur?
In your experience, there's that. There's the question.
Paying only equity very rarely happens. I mean, you usually have to have such a good relationship with the person that you're founding the company with, which you probably should have that anyway. I mean, literally they're going to be married to you, and you're gonna get in the worst situations, and in the best situations. So usually you wouldn't want someone like that to have equity. Equity is oxygen, you know? You never, I mean, it should be like, you should be holding on to that like crazy. I've seen too many people just willing to give up their equity. I would say I would probably rather that developer get paid unless they offer way more than just development too. If they're gonna run the development team in perpetuity and they can build a team around that and they're gonna recruit for you and whatever it might be, then yeah, you know, there's situations. As the developer, I guess it depends on where you are in your life, you know. There are, you know, I've done it. I've taken equity, not only though, I've never been paid just equity, but I have done that where I've taken equity and my salary was lower, as an example or something. But, you know, as a developer, I would say a lot of developers don't know what equity is. There's so many people that don't know what an option is, or what this is, or what that is, or what preferred stock is, or common, or anything. And it's not, you know, they just don't know. And so they don't know really what they're getting, so it's really on the entrepreneur to tell them, especially if you have a large team. If you're starting to give away, like, pieces of your company or something to a large team, you guys have a great year or whatever, or maybe you're doing profit sharing, or who knows what you're doing. But if your employees go, oh, thanks, when you just gave them, like, a percentage of your company or something, they don't know what you just gave them. So you have to, it's on you really to educate them or even just ask, like, hey, you know what this means that in your year-end bonus that you're getting?
The relationship that exists, which I think you touched on, right? I mean, if you just go out and find a developer and then start offering them equity, that's a big red flag, right? Because you don't know where that relationship is going to go.
Yeah, how much do you give them? You know? And then as an investor, you ask them, like, okay, what does your cap table look like right now? And you're like, well, I met this guy 5 minutes ago. I gave him 5% of my company. You're like, well, who's this guy? You know, so that can also raise some red flags. So there was one back here, or two back here. Red shirt, sorry, I don't know names.
You can't call me a red shirt. That's just right. You were talking about packaging before, how on iOS you've got a relatively simple one path, but you made reference to on Android it would be more complicated. Do you mean because of like the Amazon App Store, or it wouldn't seem like you still got pretty much Google Play in terms of?
You can sideload apps on Android. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, you can, but I mean in terms of successful marketing, is that a big component of getting your apps out to people?
I don't think that that's a marketing strategy per se, but it might be a way to get your thing to market because it doesn't follow the terms of service, or it doesn't do this, or it doesn't do that. You know, you might be building something as an enterprise solution, and so the only way that they distribute the app is that when you sell it to the enterprise, they distribute it down to their thing. You know, so there's a lot of different ways to get the app onto whomever, like your customer in that instance would be like a large enterprise company or something, and then they would distribute it. So it wouldn't be like if they never even hit the store in that way. You know, they have to do it. So it just depends. There's just more options in how people end up getting the product, but not as a marketing strategy, I don't think.
Android versus iPhone, which would you attack first and why?
I can tell you what I did with mine and why, and I can also tell you what I would do based on an idea and why. So the first thing is, if I had an idea to sell an app for $1 amount, that I said, this is going to be $20, I would put it on is, the numbers speak for themselves, but the amount of users that are willing to pay for apps on iOS is higher than Android. That's just a data thing. If I was going to do a free app that then had, like, you could add features, or you could do this, or it's ad supported perhaps, then I would try to do both. Nowadays we're fortunate that we don't have to make that distinction. There are cross-platform development tool sets that allow you to create the code base once and distribute to Windows 10 and Android and iOS and such. And so you don't have to make that call anymore. But again, if I was selling like a $20 app, I'd probably start at Android, or excuse me, at iOS and then go to Android. If I thought that my users were over there as well. Also, what's nice is that both of them are $1 billion, you know, it's a huge pie, right? So you're not really diminishing the number of people you can reach by picking one. if you have to pick one, because both of them are relatively the same size. There's a lot more Android devices, don't get me wrong. There are way more devices in the Android ecosphere than there are in the iOS ecosphere. But most of those devices are in drawers, or some of them are actually refrigerators. Or, you know, like Android runs on a lot of stuff and iOS runs on a fixed set of things, so.
One more question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that anyone can program. What are a couple of programming languages that are relatively easy to do compared to
All of them.
Well,
So what do you want to build?
Top two or three.
So if I was starting right now, today, and I wanted to build apps, I'd probably learn JavaScript. JavaScript can be used in a variety of situations now, and it's just growing, fastest growing language. And that's for the web and for mobile, that you can use JavaScript. The other ones that you can learn are Swift for iOS, and there's a new one now, forgive me, for Android. Does anybody know it?
Kotlin.
Say it again.
Kotlin.
Kotlin, Kotlin. So Kotlin is on Android, Swift is on iOS, JavaScript can do anything. And it's growing, and the support for it and the speed of it and everything else is. So, but if I was going to start today, I'd probably say I would probably jump right into JavaScript, because you can get it, if you're looking for a job, definitely.
What would be the process for determining the price?
The price is always what people are willing to pay. What people are willing to pay. So I would say, you know, depending on how your thing goes to market, is to start as high as you think you can and go down. You can never go the other way, usually. Not never, but you can usually not go the other way. But if there's competition, exploring that landscape, you know, if you identify 5 or 6 other products that look exactly like yours, even though you have some differentiators or something, see what they're going to market at and how long they've been around and all those kind of things that you can go. Even if my milk was better and I put it next to the other milk on the shelf, people are going to look at the price, even though my milk might be better. So you have to kind of go with that, but start high and then work your way down. But usually it's always what people are willing to pay. You know, and the market will end up telling you over time. Does that answer your question at all? It's tough. It's a tough one. It really is.
If you have a freemium app, what have you found are the best ways to grow your user base? Are there any things that maybe you might not think about when you're starting out?
What kind of app is it?
Maybe it's a game.
Maybe it's a game. It might be a game.
It might be.
That's really interesting. So looked at the traditional marketing avenues is strategic partnerships. So could the game have a character that is like Jeffrey the Giraffe from Toys R Us? Could it be rebranded for Sesame Street? You know, those kinds of things. Is to say, look at these brands that already have 100 million people following them all the time, and how can you get into their market through a strategic partnership or licensing or whatever it might be. That's one thing that I can think of. Anybody else have any others that they would suggest? That's one thing. The other thing is, if there's a learning component, all of education opens up to you. You know, where you're saying that you can partner with you know, daycares. It depends on where the level of this game is, but that's another thing. So I would say partnerships, business development, that would start to get you into tap into. You know.
How has international audiences helped, you know, sort of sway the way you engineer the app or you deal with data privacy or you market the app?
One thing I would say is from day one, if you're starting out now, is to, no matter what your app is, there's no reason not to make it in multiple languages. So I think that has, I don't think that's really changed all that much over the last, let's say, 5 or 6 years, but now the market is so saturated. I mean, even the iPhones and everything are now such a popular thing in like China and stuff, and it's like, That would be one thing that has definitely changed, where before it was like, well, you know, the US market is big enough. Well, in reality, if you look at almost every social app, the majority of the usage is not in the United States. And so depending on what your app is, if you feel like the bigger potential is outside, then you should go that direction. As far as the privacy is concerned, I would definitely say that you get in relationships with lawyers a lot sooner to understand what those different markets allow and don't, because unless you know what India allows and doesn't allow and so forth. The other thing that is different there, which wasn't part of your question, but is the fact that bandwidth isn't bandwidth everywhere. That has impacted a lot of different strategies. And then the last thing I'll say about that, and as far as marketing, I'm not really sure. I don't have much experience personally with marketing an app in those markets. I just know from reading and understanding that kind of stuff. But some of the apps that I've seen had no idea where their user base was going to come from, really. And I would say that's about almost every business. Like, you hear the word pivot a lot, but a lot of people will pivot because of they're failing in a particular direction. But something that happens also is that they end up succeeding in an area that they never even thought of. So I'll give you an example. Is like you have this app, it doesn't matter what it is, and then out of nowhere, everyone that plays soccer in Brazil is using it, and you're like, you never had that in your plan. Now what do you do? So sometimes those kinds of things, I've seen those kinds of things happen. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the social app Path, but it got bought by a Japanese company, but the use over there was insane. But here, no one wanted it for whatever reason. So those kind of things you might not be able to predict, but that you might, if you pay attention to where it's getting used and everything, you might be able to pivot because of a success rather than a failure. Tim, what time do I cut?
Whenever people are done asking you questions.
Well, I want to show my app.
And you want to show your app.
But I want to know what time do you usually want people to send?
We're good. We usually 8:30, something like that, so we're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I put a comment on, I think internationalizing is really important. In other words, building the app so that you can translate, using standard input methods, that sort of thing. Not necessarily translating it right away. It's actually pretty hard to do well.
Right. Well, one thing is
that's leaving out aside the need sometimes to customize for the local market.
Right.
So if you've been lucky, without doing all that stuff, then great. But it's actually pretty hard.
Hard as in to translate an app?
Well, yeah, actually to do it well, to do it professionally, yes.
I agree. The thing that you can start though is the design phase.
Right.
So starting with more of an icon-based interface is one surefire way. Like you saw Jeff's app that on the bottom was all icons. That doesn't matter where it's going to play out. It probably will translate. Not every single time,
but there are websites out there. There's I think some standards because different countries have a lot of countries will not recognize our standard mailbox, for example, because their mailboxes.
That makes sense.
Even the UK. So there's a lot to it, but there's also a lot of information out there and a lot of the typical profiles. But
right. My point with him was that it starts a lot earlier now than it did before. Where people were playing catch up before, they've already had 2 versions of their app come out, then they all of a sudden decide they want it to be in German or something. Whereas now, I would say, from day one, think about how can this be in
Oh, absolutely.
From day one,
I totally agree with you.
The other thing is accessibility. Accessibility is a lot easier now than it used to be. A lot of the tools that we use to build the apps can be accessible to the blind and the deaf and things like that. And I think it's a no-brainer to do it because it's not like it doesn't add like 20% to your build. And you can, it's not just for the fact that you can get those people as customers, but just that it doesn't take much of your time to make somebody's life a lot better by doing that. Any other ones? I'm going to move on to my app after that. You can ask me after that as well, but so did you want to say something? I had an idea about 4 years ago, and because I was building another company at the time, I shelved it and didn't build it. I also didn't know the programming language and so forth, and so I kind of just gave up. I actually opened. Does anybody know what Xcode is? Xcode is the app that allows you to build iPhone apps, and I opened it like 4 years ago and started to figure out if I could write this thing, and I quickly just knew and closed it. Objective-C, I think, scared the heck out of me. So anyway, this year, I decided to start to give it a try. And so I started on June 10th, to give you an idea. On June 9th, I had never written a line of Swift, never built an app for Xcode, never put anything on test flight, didn't know what anything of those words were. Storyboarding and profiles and provisioning and all that other stuff, I didn't know any of those things. And so I kind of just been working on it early in the morning. And again, YouTube has been my education. And so I've been building a step counter called Summit. And what's been really fun is the whole fact that I get to do every part of it, which is kind of interesting. Over the last 4 or 5 companies that I've been part of a much larger team, and so someone else is doing that piece. You know, they're doing the brand. That person over there is doing the development. This person's working on infrastructure. That person's doing this, right? You can kind of get the point. Where now I get to do it all, which is overwhelming on one hand, because every time you look at your task list, you're like, oh my goodness, there's so much to do to be able to get this thing out the door. But it's kind of like refreshing, because you wake up in the morning and you say like, well, I feel like programming today. Or the next time you feel like, you know, working in Illustrator or whatever it might be. And that's been kind of fun to do again, actually. So what is Summit? Summit is an adventurous step counter in the sense that while you're going about your daily business, and it's counting the steps for you, whether you have an Apple Watch or Fitbit or just have the phone in your pocket, it allows you to climb mountains like Everest. And as you do, let's say you make it to Camp 1 on Everest, you get some information about that peak. Who's made it there before? Here's some images from there, some video from there. And so far I've been able to create 3 peaks in that amount of time since, like I said, June 10th. And it will release with 5. And one of them, I'm pretty excited to say, is going to be Olympus Mons, which if you guys are Mars fans, it's the largest peak in the solar system. But since Mars has a slightly different gravity, I can do fun things with the step count. So there's some really, really interesting things that this thing leads itself to, and so I've been excited to kind of play with it. So I just want to kind of walk you through the whole, thing as far as building an app, because some of you maybe have no idea what building an app entails, and I'm going to maybe hopefully open up the gates for that as well. But I started out with just like kind of drawing what I thought the app interface would look like, what kind of information I would want to need and have. So you can see here, like I just started writing down things. Like I want to make sure I have at the time it was called the mountain name, although I'm extending it now. One of them I have is Lombard Street in San Francisco. If you've ever been to San Francisco, there's this one street that's insane. It goes back and forth like this, and it's a pretty steep grade. And so I'm thinking about doing partly of the Appalachian Trail and things like that. So mountain kind of got thrown out for the word summit eventually. But the start date and end date, so just so you know, you can only summit one thing at a time. So you hit start on Everest and you're only doing Everest. You can't switch to Lombard Street in the middle or anything like that. And you can choose to stop, you can come back down, but you can't, just hop around the world or anything like that. So I started to put together also an algorithm for the step counter. It's not a one-to-one. As an example, if we were to come here and walk up these 4 flights of stairs, for every flight of stairs that you take, you get more credit than the number of stairs it is. So I'm doing some little magic there with the fact that, let's just say, as an example, you take 10 steps. Your step counter will say that you did 10. But it also knows how many floors you went up. And so I use floors as a multiplier for step count. So it kind of incentivizes people to take the stairs. Which has been pretty interesting to play out. I've got some beta testers on it, and it's been interesting to see how that works. So you can see here on the right-hand side is the, I don't know how good that's coming out, but hopefully it's okay. The kind of the interface that I envisioned for it, right? Which is just a huge thing that says mountain name. It's going to take, at the time I thought, Everest would take 1.2 million steps, but then I realized that's, on a normal step count, I don't know what your guys' average is, but that would take me like way too long. Especially while I'm developing an app and not moving. At the bottom, you kind of have your starting point, right? Your date is down there. And then as you get up to these different camps, it kind of tells you where you're at, and eventually you get to the top. One thing I tried to do 4 years ago was I opened up the interface builder, And I wanted to have like a picture of Everest, right? And then have the line, like do the Indiana Jones thing from one spot to, I tried that and I couldn't do it. And so sometimes I just have to throw ideas out. But I wanted to show you some of those as well. Some of the ideas I threw out, I'm gonna show you too. Here's why I started working on the brand. So this is a whole different thing. Okay, I was working on the app interface before, the logic behind the app and things. But now you gotta think about what is the brand for the app and start drawing shapes and figuring it out. I'm not a designer, although I think everybody is. I'm not a developer, but I think everybody can be, you know. So it's one of those things where, yeah, I used to work with a great art director and I don't have him anymore. And so it's on me to figure that out. What does it mean to draw a logo? What does it mean to build an entire style guide for a company? And now I have to do it, which is kind of fun, right? Because I get to learn and figure it out. So here's some ideas that I had. You probably like, what is those things? But I kind of zeroed in on one, which if you saw it before, you recognize it. I kind of ended up zeroing in on this little crazy thing that had the M in it, that it was like two mountains or whatever. The thing on the bottom, we had this one idea 4 years ago again, to do, does anybody know what low poly is? If you've ever played like a video game and everything's kind of 3D-ish looking, that would be really cool. Like if you were going up the different peaks and you were kind of like going around the thing, but I couldn't do that either, so I threw that out. You just have to live with what you can do, you know. And then I started to develop here on the right-hand side the logo type. I didn't know what I was doing, so none of those really, doesn't make any sense. But that's something that you could do. So for those of you that are not designers and don't understand any of this, the left-hand side is something that you would call your logo's mark. And the right-hand side is something that you would call your logo type, right? So you can imagine like FedEx is logo type, but it also works as their mark. Target has a mark and they have logo type. And so they kind of own that, right? I think their logo is in Helvetica too, so it's like very simple. But those are the two distinguished, just so that you know, so that when you're talking to someone that is a designer on the other side, and they're like, no, this is the logo, and you're saying it's the logo, and it's the logo. Like everybody thinks that a brand is the logo, but it's not. And so it's interesting to go through this yourself, because then you know, if you were to farm this out to somebody else, you can kind of get in their head and know what they're going through and what their deliverables are. And that. So even if I redesign this whole thing with like real people at some point, I'll know more. And so that's why I was saying before, as somebody that was saying like, I need a technical founder. No, develop it yourself, because then when you have a guy that's telling you he wants $180 an hour, you'll know what you're getting. Then I kind of graduated to something like this, and this was just me redesigning it a little bit, going through different things. The weird lines that you see on the left-hand side, like, I'll give you an example. So this is for iOS specifically, but they have something that's called constraints for auto layout, right? So everybody's iPhone is different. Mine's 7 Plus and it's this big, and somebody else's a 5 and it's smaller. And so what happens is, you can kind of imagine, the whole thing moves around all the time. So how do you draw your interface on that when the thing's moving around all the time? And so I kind of just drew it, and we're like, okay, let me figure this thing out, because I could not figure out Apple's tool. Does anybody here know, like, ever build an iOS app? Do you guys use storyboards? Do you use storyboards? They're the worst. Have you ever considered throwing them out?
Yeah.
Have you tried it?
No, I found ways to work around it.
Okay, because I want to know if I'm not doing it right. But almost everybody else that I found, sorry Tim, almost everybody else that I found that got to some level of developing iOS apps said they threw it out, right? And so I was like, okay, why learn the not as good way, or why learn the more frustrating way? I'll just write it all in Swift. So I've written the entire interface in Swift rather than using storyboards, and I can tell you, I've slept a lot better because of it. Storyboards are a nightmare. But anyway, these little things right here, this is a constraint from the left side of the device to whatever this box is. These are all buttons, so there's a constraint starting from the bottom of your app to the first button, and there's a constraint that is limited to that next button, to the next button, to the next button, to the next button, all the way up. And depending on how many goals there are for that summit, you have to kind of figure out where that button's going to be. Blah, 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 blah. And then, if you guys do HTML and CSS and stuff, you guys probably know how to position things and blah, blah, blah. But in this language, it is completely different. It's not like I knew HTML, CSS, and grid layout and everything. It doesn't matter. It's a whole different school. So kind of interesting to go through that and learn all of that. Frustrating as all get out, I gotta say, because storyboards, I probably wasted 3 weeks on my interface using storyboards. I just could not get it to work. Kept saying that I had these different constraints and stuff that weren't lining up or whatever, and so I redid it all in Swift. So if you have an opportunity to at least look at it, you might have the same, or I could be doing it all wrong and don't listen to me. I don't know. Here's what you kind of have to do to get to where I'm at, which is just beta, right? I mean, and it's like, this is not even close to a real list. Like, this is just me writing down my bullet journal, all the different things that I have to do. It's a lot. So when people say like, oh, I want to build an app or whatever, it is a lot to get to the point where you just have something in test mode. It's a lot. So don't underestimate it. I started going this route, which was kind of fun, but I thought what would be neat is if there was a stamp, like a mailing stamp or postage stamp for every mountain that you were doing, and that I would draw all the art for it all. That was a bad idea. Because, let me see if I can show you. I don't know if this is going to work. Let me go over here. I have a video of me in Illustrator. This is a 20-minute video, but it would, and I'm not going to show, don't get scared, I'm not going to show it all to you. I'm going to fast forward it. But this is a 20-minute video of me using Illustrator. At this point, I'd already spent countless mornings. My wife's in the back, she knows that like I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and work until I had to go to work every morning on it. But here's kind of, let me just fast forward it. It was fun, this is fun to watch. It's fun, it was fun to do at the time. But I threw the idea out, because I'm not an illustrator, I don't even know what I'm doing. Anybody that in here knows how to use Illustrator is probably like, what in the world is he doing? I noticed, now these clouds are right, but my wife looked at it and she goes, no, this is not the one that is an example of this, but she's like, the clouds are all upside down. And I'm like, what? Like I drew all the clouds upside down, didn't know why. So it was fun, and sometimes the things that you throw out you might like the best. Like I liked doing this was fun. Like this is the stamp for, that was obviously the stamp for Everest, but this is the stamp for Lombard Street in San Francisco. I drew some sort of Golden Gate thing, and that was fun. Like it was really neat to do, but it, threw it out. Is there another one? I'm going to fast forward a little more. This is for Diamond Head in Oahu, which was really fun, again, to draw the palm trees and everything, and then I just threw it out. So, I think my point is like, it was really fun to learn all these things. And sometimes the thing that you like to do the best is the thing you're going to throw out. And you got to be okay with that. Maybe. So, this is what it looks like now. This is the list when it comes up as far as the different things that you can do. So you can see that the hiking indicator there is showing that I'm on Diamond Head at the moment. But let's say I tap into that. Oh, sorry, I'm not in play mode here. So if I tap into Diamond Head, you wouldn't see both interfaces. You'd only see the one on the right. And it says that so far, out of the 10,000 steps, I've done 7,000 some. And I've made it up 5 of those goals. So as you make it up those goals, they highlight and become active. If you tap on one that you're not at, it kind of says, no, you're not there yet. And then if I tap on one of the goals, it gives me information about that particular area on Diamond Head or something. So it's a very, very simple app. It's not like I'm not showing you something really, but it was really fun to kind of put together. And the editorial was also fun. That's another piece of it all together, is like to go find all these facts about Diamond Head, and then to be able to write, like I'm kind of writing it like an adventure comic book thing, like you're in a dark place, or whatever, just to try to incentivize people to continue to go. And that's been really fun. So I thought I was going to be able to do a demo, but I have like the latest betas of Xcode, and for whatever reason, and I'm not sure if anybody here with more experience than me knows why, but all of the constraints that I have going on, it'll work, but it makes the app, like this particular view right here is like really slow. I don't know why. I'll figure it out at some point, but that's also fun. Try to figure it out. Not on my phone though. So like when I use it on my phone, it's lightning quick, Comes right up like that, you can go right to the next thing, I can swipe down, everything's working. However, when I load it up in the simulator, it's like, I don't know why. Figure it out. So if I tap on Diamond Head, it shows me, now I kind of, I created a branch for this specifically, and so I gave myself like 60,000 steps, just so you guys can see how it works. But if I were to go to the first one, pulls up some information about that particular thing with an image, you know, pretty simple. So this is where I'm at right now. My next step is to add ads to the bottom of it, to the bottom of your view, to add an in-app purchase to remove those ads. And I'm going to release, when I release the app, it's going to have 5 different summits. One of them will likely be premium, the other 4 free. And if you subscribe to it with a monthly payment or something, you'll get all the premium ones, and I'll release one every single month. So something like that. No idea if it's going to work. Don't care if it makes money. Gonna try. Gonna have fun with it. But that's where I'm at right now, and that was kind of fun. I have got about maybe 15 people using it, a couple in the UK, a couple here, and I have a mailing list started. If you go to the website that I built this morning, before I went to work, cdevroe.com, my last name is probably very odd to say out loud, and you hear it, it doesn't look right, but believe it or not, it's Devroe. cdevroe.com/summit. If you guys could all just be the best people in the world, you'll go there right now and put your email address in. Not a fake one, like don't pull that off like, oh, here's my phone number, it's not real, don't do that. And maybe I'll load it all into Jeff's system, you know, and I can email you guys. What I will do if you do that though, if you have an iPhone, if you don't have an iPhone, then it doesn't matter. Is you will get a beta of the app before it comes out and be able to give you feedback and all that kind of stuff. And then after that, anybody that's in the beta, I'm going to give them the premium thing. So just to give you feedback. I've gotten so much feedback, it's kind of like great. This is what the site looks like right now. You go down here and you type in your Apple ID or your email address. Does anybody have questions about that whole thing? And I'm sure I won't know because I'm just starting out myself. But that's kind of the point, right?
What do you normally look like for feedback from your beta users and stuff like that? What are you looking for?
It's everything that I don't know. So I don't know what I'm looking for, right? So the more diverse of a subset of users that I could possibly get, the hopefully they'll be like, well, why don't you try this, or why don't you do that? Or it's hopefully what I couldn't think of myself. Obviously, being on more devices and being on more things is going to catch more problems. But the problems, hopefully, I'll be able to squash myself over time anyway. But it's more about, like, I had one guy say, you know, what if like the first 20 people to complete the summit when you release it? Because I'm going to release it, like I want to kind of like build a little anticipation for the release of the next summit. So let's say it comes out on the 15th of every month at 8 a.m. I want everyone that uses it to know it's coming. So like on the bottom of the first view, it can literally say when it's coming and have a little countdown. And then they'll get like an app update and they'll come through. So imagine if the first 20 people that finish it, that get to the top, all the steps are counted, everything's done, they hit done, they get a t-shirt or something. Like somebody came up with that idea, and I never would have thought of that. So like there's things like that I hope from beta testers for me. And then obviously the wider variety of devices and stuff, hopefully you'll catch like bugs, and which they did. They've caught a lot of different problems, like something wasn't working or whatever. Yeah.
Do you feel like that by doing everything yourself, if you were to be in you'd appreciate the efforts of those who are really professionals in all those disciplines, you know, and be able to, you know, maybe hire them more wisely? Because I'm thinking somebody just starting out, you try all that stuff, you may not be good at it, but you learn about it.
Yeah. So my whole career has been this, right? I left high school like 16 or 17 and taught myself everything that I know. So kind of I've had this same experience through my whole entire career. And so I know everybody else is smarter, and I know that everybody else there's more to the job than I think all the time. I always underestimate somebody else's work. I think everybody does that, right? Like, oh, what you do, you're an accountant, that's easy, you know, or whatever. Well, we would never say that. But you get my point. Like, I always kind of know that, and I sometimes make the mistake to under evaluate somebody's, you know, potential. But I would say with this specific thing, the things that I've learned the most here is there are a lot more steps than I thought to get an app on Apple's ecosystem specifically. I don't know that the person necessarily that I would look at that and be like, oh, you did this and stuff. It's just that if somebody tells you it's probably going to be like a $10,000 starting price to even get something on the App Store, I would say that's fine. Because there's a lot here. And even if they know how to do it in a day, doesn't matter. That means expertise that you didn't know. And, there's a lot, like just to get it like through the app review team, like I had to like pay somebody, pretty much. Like you really feel you're groveling to get something on Apple's App Store. And my app isn't all that complex. So I was surprised by that. Like, and the provisioning and stuff, or whatever that's called, like that is like crazy. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane. You have to like sign your code and I don't know what it all is, but it's unbelievable amount of stuff. And so that alone right there is like, okay, there isn't 9 steps to develop an app. There isn't like design, code, release. It's not that. It's design, code, then work for a while, and then release.
So the pricing strategy, did you think you were going to do an in-app, or did you think about maybe charging for the app? So say it's $3, so if you get enough interest, hey, I want to just buy this app outright without having ads or anything like that. I'm just wondering, like, your pricing strategy, how'd you come up with that? Because I'm kind of trying to figure it out myself.
Yeah. For me, because I have a day job, I can make a different decision. So I don't know what decision I would make as far as, and I don't even know if this is going to work and if I'm going to change it, right? But this is what I'm planning on doing now, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll change something. But I don't know if I would make a different decision if I was like, I'm building this app and I need to feed my family with this app, then maybe I would do it a little differently. I will say that I also look at myself as a person that is totally fine with paying money for apps. Much to my wife's chagrin, like, she's like, what's this 99-cent thing? Like, every 5 days, because I'm like, right? Because I like apps and I need them and I use them all day. So for me, getting something out there for free that people can use. I also like, there's someone that developed Overcast, Marco Arment, and he made a really good point about the whole in-app purchase thing as far as features go. He always felt like he was giving his customers a subpar application. Like, let's say that your idea is this, and then you go, I'm going to cut this out and give it to them for free, and then I'll charge for this piece. That's kind of what in-app purchases is when it comes down to features. But you're kind of giving someone a neutered application that you think is good enough that they want the other piece. As opposed to saying, you know what, I want you to see my whole idea. I want you to see everything that's in that application, except if you use it for this many people or for this many times or whatever a different metric for that in-app purchase. For me, it's ads. I think ads are annoying, and it's just enough like to get rid of it. And if you don't, I'll make money on you anyway. Because hopefully you'll open this app probably. Like right now, I'm seeing about 14 opens a day, and I only have 3 notifications that go out. One goes out at figuring out notifications was like insane. 9:30, 12:30, and 6:15. So hopefully you'll get at least 3 opens just to see like what your progress was. And I'm not doing push or anything like that. I'm just doing like local notifications, if that makes any sense to you. But I would say like if I'm seeing 14 opens, I'll make money on ads. You know, if I can reach, a fairly good set of users.
What is the number on that? Do you know, like roughly, how much money can you make off of ads?
What's CPM for like? Well, I think right now the main ad provider in like unless you have your own network or something is called AdMob. From Google, I believe. Can anybody back me up on that? iOS developer here up front. Do you do ads in your app? No. So I don't know what the CPM is right now. I have no idea. I haven't looked into that. So I'm not basing my model on like that. That's just kind of like, okay, well, if you're going to use this thing for free. Because remember, every month I'll be releasing a new one that's premium. So you are going to be stuck with 3 or 4 things, and you know what I mean? You probably won't stick around. I don't plan on that making. I just want that to be a little itchy. Like it's like kind of like throwing a wool sweater on somebody. You're like, hey, pay you $5, you can take that wool sweater off.
For your ads, I'm not sure. I know Catholics and some you can use campaign management. So for example, if you use Summit, most people that are going to use this, you're targeting fitness and people that want to be outdoors and whatnot. So it not necessarily you're not stuck with an ad for Clark shoes or something random. Like let's say if it's summertime or it's wintertime, you can design your user interface, include an app if they look at details or anything for the North Face or for Patagonia, or, you know what I mean, something kind of related. I don't know where the control is in that, but I know that there's campaign management applications you can use to help target that, so that when someone's looking at it, they don't see an ad for, TKNY, something random, right? Like you want to try to stick to what you think your user base is going to be around, or like what they're going to need. So, and no ads is good, but if you kind of have to use it to make some money, there's sometimes you can meet in the middle and say, okay, if I have to show ads,
They might as well be good in some way.
well, yeah, show ads for, like Timberland, or it's, outdoor stuff, or, hiking and fitness and whatnot, Nike apparel, whatever. Like, don't show them random stuff. Like, I always laugh when you're looking at a sports app and I'll get like an ad for a Maybelline. I'm like, come on, like, really?
Yeah.
It's not related, it's not the same thing, so. Just something to throw out there, like, because I've heard of campaign, I don't know what that would cost you or going through, but depending on how you want it to go, there are campaign management stuff out there.
Appreciate that.
Or too surprised.
You mentioned before cross-platform development tools like PhoneGap, for example. What's your thinking in terms of doing iOS native first as opposed to one of the cross-platform development tools?
My thinking specifically was because I wanted to learn Swift. That was it. I wanted to say, can I build something that's on iOS that I ship that's on iOS? Also, because of the clientele that I currently have, we're doing a lot of stuff with PhoneGap and React and different things, and I kind of wanted to see if I do it completely in Swift and without storyboards too. I got different performance as well, which was interesting. I don't know if that makes a sense or not. I don't know, but I kind of wanted to say, okay, I need to get my React, the thing I'm building in Java, I got to get to here as far as user experience. So now I set the bar higher for myself in the completely other environment. So for me, it wasn't like a decision like, oh, what should I do here? Like, it was like, I want to learn Swift, and so this is the best way to do it, and I have an idea, and let's just do that. So that was it. There was no other really thinking behind it. I want you guys to see my code. It's terrible. But if you guys have any, if you guys are good iOS developers or whatever, like, definitely, I have some questions, especially about this stuff. This is down here and everything.
And plenty of equity to give.
Anthony has equity, he's going way back there. This is the constraint stuff right here. I'm not sure if you've ever seen that stuff. Like that, so that's what I mean by like I'm doing it in Swift. I don't know if it made me sound better than I was, but like that is just adding these different constraints to these views. And this is the visual language so everybody can follow this, which if I was teaching you CSS, it would be similar. It's just text, that's all it is. But can you see a highlighted line? Is there a highlighted line? Oh yeah. The highlighted thing that you see up there is essentially like saying in the horizontal plane, the bar going up and down is the sides of the phone, believe it or not. A dash is some padding. The word stamp would be my stamps that I had in there. They used to be called stamps, now they're just a photo of the thing that you saw on the front. And then the next thing is I want 10 pixels of padding, and then a description of the mountain, and then 10 pixels of padding. So essentially you're like giving a text string that's building your interface, and you have to do that more and more and more and more and more, as like these are all the different views that I have in that particular view. This is the summits view, so it's, again, my simulator is really slow, so I'm going to click X, and this will take a while. I'd love to know why that's happening. My constraint, it's all saying like, oh, we try to figure out your constraints or something, and I'm not sure why. But only in the simulator. And there's no like debug that I can turn off or whatever. So like I literally clicked X already, and it's just like, it's thinking it's doing something, and then like, there it goes. So this right here, remember how I drew those constraints where I was like, here's the bar, and that's kind of what I was doing in that text-based thing. It's saying like, horizontally from here, I have some padding to the stamp, which used to be a stamp that I drew, now it's just a photo, and then to the description. So I have, this line is like, okay, here to there to there, here to there to there, here to there to there. All these labels are called views, and it's mind-boggling. Any other questions? Can you see my enthusiasm for it though? Like I'm hoping that, if you're like, I have an app idea, and it may not even be a business, but you can build it, you know what I mean? Like you can do it. Even if you know nothing about it, you can figure it out. Did you guys all put your email address in? You're all lying to me? I won't give you any email, but like a link to this thing. That's a free app. Happy travel.
Sorry.
Now you're gonna